Most ghost stories sound different when they're told by someone who doesn't believe in ghosts, right up until they're rehearsing the phrase, "I know how this sounds," but like it's a court statement. Tonight's accounts aren't polished legends. They're the raw, shaky kind, typed out by people who are just trying to finish a shift, get home, or sleep in their own bed without being acknowledged by the dark. Some of what you'll hear can be blamed on pipes, wiring, and exhausted brains. The problem is the ones that feel less like a glitch and more like an introduction. Welcome to Macabre Miscellanea, a curated collection of digital dread. Tonight's collection, 13 ghostly encounters. Turn down the lights. Let's begin. Story number 1 from user Creek Bed Footsteps. I see the same ghost on my bus every day, and no one else seems to notice.
Every morning at 6:47 a.m., I catch the number 12 bus downtown. I sit in the same spot, second row, window seat on the left, just behind the handicapped section. I always get there early enough to secure it. Creature of habit, I guess. A couple of months ago, I started noticing this girl sitting across from me. Pale. Not in the avoid sunlight way. More like hasn't been alive for a while. Pale, she's probably in her 20s. Messy, shoulder-length hair, dull blonde. Always wearing the same thing. A dark green hoodie, black jeans, muddy white Converse. The hoodie is wet, like soaked all the time. I thought maybe she was unhoused, caught in the rain, something like that. But it's not just that she's always wet. It's how she's wet. Her clothes don't drip. There's never a puddle. It's like the water clings to her but doesn't behave normally. And the smell, mold and rot, like leaves that have been decomposing in a gutter. I've tried talking to her. Just a simple, "Hey." Nothing. No eye contact. No acknowledgement. Just stares out the window like she's watching something. Only she can see. Last week I leaned in a little closer and said louder, "Excuse me, are you okay?" She turned and looked right at me for the first time. Her eyes were cloudy. Not blind, just murky. Like something was swirling behind them. And then she smiled, but not a friendly smile. It was tight, like she was holding back something awful. That was the first time I noticed her skin isn't just pale. It's bloated. Puffy, like she drowned. I flinched and looked away. When I glanced back a second later, she was gone. Like, vanished. Okay, maybe I imagined her. Maybe my sleep-deprived brain conjured a bog corpse because I watched too many horror movies. But then this morning, I got on the bus and noticed a damp spot on the seat where she usually sits. The smell hit me before I even sat down. And here's the kicker. I asked the bus driver today, casually, "Hey, do you ever see that girl who sits near the front? Wet hoodie, kinda quiet?" He frowned and said, "Buddy, this is a city bus. Everyone looks like that." I laughed awkwardly, but he didn't. Just stared at me for a second, then added, "If I were you, I'd stop sitting so close to her. The last guy who did that drowned in his sleep. They found algae in his lungs. I don't know if he was screwing with me or not, but when I turned to look back at her seat, it was empty again. Bus number 12. Every morning, 6:47 a.m. I'll be on it again tomorrow. I don't know why. I just hope I don't end up riding it forever."
Story number 2 from user Offsite Archive. Something in the attic. And it knows my name.
Hey everyone, long-time lurker, first-time poster. I'm starting to get seriously freaked out and need some outside perspective before I completely lose it. We moved into this old Victorian about 6 months ago. Beautiful place, lots of character, the whole 9 yards. The previous owners mentioned it had a bit of a history, but brushed it off as just being old. I'm starting to think they downplayed things. A lot. It started small. Footsteps in the attic when no one was up there. Doors creaking open on their own. The usual old house quirks, right? I tried to rationalize it all. Settling foundation, drafts, you name it. My wife, Sarah, was a little more on edge, but she mostly tried to ignore it. Then things started getting personal. A few weeks ago, I was working from home in the living room. I distinctly heard someone whisper my name, clear as day. Mark. It wasn't Sarah, her voice is higher. This was a lower, almost raspy sound, like someone speaking through dry lips. I checked the whole house, no one. Brushed it off as stress, but it's happening more and more. Sometimes it's just a breathy sigh near my ear when I'm alone. Other times it's that whisper, always my name. Mark. It's like it's calling to me. The attic is the worst. I avoid going up there, but sometimes I have to for storage. Every time I do, I get this overwhelming feeling of being watched. The air gets cold, and I swear I can hear soft shuffling sounds. Last week, I was up there grabbing some Christmas decorations and I heard it again, right behind me. Mark. It was so close I felt a chill run down my spine. I practically sprinted down the stairs. Sarah finally heard something last night. We were in bed, and she woke me up saying she heard someone humming in the hallway, a low, mournful tune. When I went to check, it stopped, but the air in the hallway was icy cold. She's officially freaked now, too. Tonight was the last straw. I was downstairs watching TV, and the lights flickered. Then, the old music box we have on the mantelpiece started playing. It hasn't worked in years. It just sat there, silent. But tonight, it played this creepy, off-key melody for a good minute before just stopping. And then I heard it again, faint but unmistakable, coming from the attic. Mark. I'm sitting here downstairs now, lights on in every room, heart pounding. I don't know what to do. Is this a ghost? Some kind of residual energy? Or am I completely losing my mind? Has anyone experienced anything like this? The personal aspect of it, knowing my name, is what really creeps me out. Any advice would be appreciated. Should I try to communicate? Should we call someone? Who do you even call for something like this? Throwaway account for obvious reasons. TLDR, moved into an old house, hearing creepy noises and whispers of my name, specifically Mark. Music box that hasn't worked in years just played. Pretty sure my house is haunted and it knows who I am.
Story number 3, from user Hexadoorframe. My car radio is haunted, and it's playing some seriously messed up stuff.
I know how this sounds. Trust me, I do. But I'm genuinely freaked out and need to know if anyone else has experienced anything remotely similar. For the past few weeks, my car radio has been acting strange. It started with static, like really intense static, that would randomly cut in even when I had a clear signal. I figured it was just my old car being its usual unreliable self. But then it escalated. Now, in between songs or talk radio, I'm starting to hear things. Not voices, not exactly. More like whispers. Faint, distorted, like someone is trying to talk through a broken microphone. I can never make out any actual words, just this unsettling murmur that sends shivers down my spine. The really messed up part? The music. Sometimes the radio will suddenly switch to a station I wasn't listening to, playing these old, creepy-sounding songs. Think like really scratchy recordings of children's rhymes, but slowed down and distorted. Or these weird, melancholic tunes that sound like they're being played on a broken music box. It's the kind of music you'd hear in a really unsettling horror movie. And it's not like it's just 1 or 2 seconds. These songs will play for a good minute or two before the radio either goes back to static or switches to a normal station like nothing happened. I've tried everything. I've scanned through all the stations, made sure I'm not accidentally hitting any weird presets. I even took it to a mechanic, and they said the radio itself seems fine. No loose wires, nothing obviously wrong. They looked at me like I had 3 heads when I tried to explain the creepy ghost music. The worst incident happened last night. I was driving home late listening to a podcast when the audio just cut out and was replaced by that intense static. Then, this really faint, high-pitched singing started. It sounded like a woman's voice, but it was so distorted and warbly it was almost inhuman. And the lyrics, I only caught a few words, but they sounded like lost, alone, forever. It was so unsettling I actually pulled over. As soon as I turned off the engine, the radio went silent. When I turned the ignition back on, it was back to a normal radio station. I'm starting to genuinely dread driving my car. Every time I turn on the radio, I'm waiting for the next creepy transmission. It feels like something is trying to communicate, but in the most disturbing way possible. Has anyone ever experienced anything like this? A haunted car radio? Am I losing it? Should I try recording it? I'm hesitant because, honestly, just hearing it live is terrifying enough. Any advice or similar stories would be greatly appreciated. I'm officially creeped out. TLDR, my car radio is playing creepy whispers and distorted old-timey music, sometimes with unsettling faint singing. Mechanics found nothing wrong. Pretty sure my car is haunted by a very musically disturbed ghost.
Story number 4 from user Fluorescent Grim. The ghost in my apartment doesn't want me to sleep.
I moved into a cheap 1-bedroom apartment above a closed-down dry cleaner 3 months ago. It's not fancy, but it's mine. The walls are thin, the pipes groan, and there's always this weird chemical smell in the hallway. I figured all of that came with the territory, but the dreams started on the 3rd night. I don't remember falling asleep. I never do anymore. But I always wake up gasping, like I've been drowning. Sometimes I dream of someone standing at the foot of my bed, not doing anything, just watching, breathing too loud. Other times, I hear scratching, not on the walls or ceiling, inside the mattress, like something is trapped under me. At first, I wrote it off as stress or sleep paralysis. I even laughed about it with my coworker. "Oh no, my ghost wants cuddles," I joked. It stopped being funny when I found footprints on my bedroom floor. Small ones. Bare feet. Too small to be mine. Wet, like someone had just stepped out of the shower. They led from the closet to the edge of my bed, and then vanished. I live alone. Things escalated. Lights flicker. My alarm clock resets itself to 3:13 a.m. every night. Sometimes I wake up, and all the pictures on my wall are crooked, tilted at the same angle, like a head cocked to the side, curious. 2 weeks ago, I tried staying awake all night with the lights on. At 3:13, the bulbs burst. Not popped. Burst. Glass everywhere. I felt a hand grip my ankle under the blanket. Ice cold, with long fingers. I screamed like a toddler and sprinted out barefoot into the hallway. Didn't go back inside until the sun came up. I'd move, but my lease is locked in and I can't afford to break it. I've tried cleansing, prayers, salt lines, even had a guy with crystals come in. The ghost isn't gone. If anything, it's getting more comfortable. Last night I woke up to a whisper in my ear. You looked right at me this time. I didn't. God help me, I didn't. But now I can feel it watching from the dark corner of my room. And tonight, I don't think it's going to just watch. I don't think it wants to share anymore.
Story number 5, from user Ouija Planchette. There's a ghost that follows me, but only when I'm not home.
I don't know when exactly it started, but I can tell you the first time I noticed him. It was around 9:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I was at the grocery store grabbing something I could pass off as dinner. I was alone in the frozen foods aisle, scanning for discount burritos, when I felt this pressure, like someone was behind me, watching. You know that sensation that trickles down your neck? That. I glanced to my right, and there he was. A man, late 30s maybe, wearing a black funeral suit that looked like it had been soaked and left to dry on a body. The fabric clung to him. His skin was this awful gray-blue, like someone trying to cosplay being alive and doing a terrible job. His eyes weren't glowing or hollow or anything obvious like that, just wrong, cloudy, like water-damaged marble. He stood by the glass freezer doors, one hand resting gently on the handle like he was about to open it. But he never did. He just stared at me, dead still. No blinking, no breathing. I blinked, and he was gone. Thought I imagined it, thought I was tired, but then I saw him again. Second time was at a gas station, middle of the day, bright sun, nothing creepy about it. I stopped to fill up and went inside to grab a drink. While I was waiting to pay, I noticed movement outside, through the smudged glass, past the Red Bull fridge and racks of lottery tickets. I saw a man behind the ice machine. He was crammed in the narrow gap between the machine and the brick wall. No one should have fit there, but he did. His head was tilted slightly to the side, just enough to catch me in his line of sight. Still wearing that waterlogged suit, still staring. By the time I ran outside, he was gone. No footprints in the slush, no wet trail, just gone. Third time was on a train. Late commute. I was riding the Blue Line, half asleep, headphones in. The car was mostly empty, just me and some guy eating chips 2 rows up. I looked out the window, into the reflection, and I swear on my life, he was sitting 2 seats behind me. But when I turned around, no one was there, just an empty seat and the faintest scent of mildew. That's when I realized he only shows up when I'm not home. A few days later, I was at my nephew's soccer game. Suburban field, families everywhere, kids yelling, nothing spooky about it. But something caught my eye beyond the goalpost, just outside the chain link fence. He was standing there again. Not close, maybe 50 feet off, but facing me. Not the field, not the game. Me. I tried pointing him out to my sister, but when I turned back, he was already gone. He was in a coffee shop window once. I was walking past, not even going in, just happened to glance at my reflection, and saw him seated inside, sipping from an empty cup, watching me like he was waiting for me to notice him. I whipped around, ready to confront whoever the hell this was. But there was no one at that table, just a cold ceramic mug and a damp ring where a hand might have rested. And then there's the Instagram photo. My friend posted a group shot from a street fair we went to. I wasn't in the photo. I was the one taking it. But in the back corner, partially hidden behind a booth selling kettle corn, there he was, blurry, unmistakable. That face, that suit, that stare. He's showing up more often now, closer each time. He never appears at home, but I think he's circling in, tightening the loop. Yesterday, I saw him in the reflection of my car's rearview mirror. I was parked. The engine was off. He was sitting in the back seat. Didn't move, just watched me through the mirror. When I turned around, Empty. But the back seat was wet, damp, like someone had just climbed out of a lake. I don't know what he wants. He never speaks, never moves toward me, just appears, watches, vanishes. But tonight, I found something that makes me think it's escalating. A handprint, pressed on the inside of my front door. Too high to be mine, too wide, still damp. I think next time, he's coming in.
Story number 6 from user Porchlight Watcher. I think the ghost in my apartment is more terrified of me.
All right, this is a weird one, even for this sub. I've been experiencing some things in my apartment for a few months now. The usual flickering lights, cold spots, the occasional feeling of being watched. I've tried to ignore it, chalk it up to old building quirks, you know, the drill. But lately the activity has been different. It's like the ghost is trying to be subtle, but failing miserably and then freaking out when it thinks I've noticed. The first time I really clocked it was a few weeks ago. I was making coffee in the kitchen and I heard this faint clatter from the living room, like something small fell off a shelf. I went to check and nothing was out of place, but then I swear I heard this tiny, almost whimper-like sound, like a scared animal, and the air in the living room felt lighter, almost like something had just bolted in. It's happened a few times since. I'll hear a floorboard creak when I'm the only one home, and then immediately it's followed by this sense of panic? Like whatever made the noise suddenly realized I heard it and is trying to be extra quiet. Last night was the most bizarre. I was watching TV and the remote flew off the coffee table. Not violently, just slid off. I looked over, annoyed, ready to blame my clumsy self, but then I saw it. A faint, almost shimmering outline near the bookshelf. It was only there for a split second, but it looked vaguely human-shaped. And then the weirdest thing happened. Instead of feeling scared, I felt a little annoyed. I just sighed and said out loud, "Seriously, you knocked over the remote? Cut it out." Immediately, the temperature in the room dropped noticeably, but not in a menacing way. More like a sudden gust of cold air. And then, I swear I heard this rapid series of almost silent rustling sounds. Like something was frantically trying to get away. The cold spot vanished just as quickly. And tonight I was walking down the hallway to the bathroom and the light at the end flickered. Again, not a dramatic horror movie flicker, more like a hesitant little blink. I just kept walking, not even acknowledging it. The flickering stopped instantly. It felt like whatever was doing it was like, "Oh crap, they're coming, abort!" It's like this ghost is trying to do classic spooky stuff, but it's really bad at it and gets super flustered when I seem aware of it. It's less like a haunting and more like living with a really clumsy, shy, and easily startled roommate who also happens to be dead. Am I crazy for thinking this? Has anyone else experienced a ghost that seems more afraid of them? It's honestly more baffling than terrifying at this point. I almost feel bad for the poor spectral dude. Or dudette. Maybe I should start leaving out snacks, ghost cookies, anyone? TLDR, I think the ghost in my apartment is trying to haunt me, but it's really clumsy and seems to panic and try to hide whenever I notice it. It's more awkward and skittish than scary.
Story number 7 from user Candlecipher. My grandpa's recliner is definitely haunted, and it's getting worse.
Hey everyone, longtime reader. Finally have something genuinely unsettling to share. It involves my grandpa's old recliner. He passed away about 6 months ago, peacefully in his sleep, in that very chair. We kept it because it was his favorite, and honestly, it's super comfy. At first, it was just little things. Sometimes, when no one was near it, we'd hear a faint creak like someone had just sat down. We'd all kind of chuckle and say, "Oh, that's just Grandpa settling in." It was almost comforting, but things have taken a decidedly uncomfy turn. Over the past few weeks, the creaking has become more frequent and deliberate. It's not just a random settling sound anymore. It's like someone is actually shifting in the chair. You can almost feel the weight distribution change. Then came the sighs. Quiet, raspy sighs that seem to emanate directly from the recliner. You can be across the room and you'll just hear it. It's always a single sigh, full of what sounds like exhaustion, sadness. I can't quite place it, but it's deeply unsettling. My mom was the first to really freak out. She swore she saw the back of the recliner slightly recline on its own while she was in the kitchen. She ran out of the room and hasn't gone near it since. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the mechanism is loose, but I checked and it's pretty stiff. It definitely wouldn't move on its own like that. I've started avoiding sitting in it. It just feels, wrong, like I'm intruding on something. But my brother, being the brave or stupid one, decided to try it out last night. He said he sat down, and the chair immediately let out this long, drawn-out groan, like someone was in immense discomfort. He got up pretty quickly after that, looking pale. But the creepiest thing happened just an hour ago. I was in the living room trying to ignore the chair when I heard it. Not a creak, not a sigh. It was more like a soft, wet cough. It sounded like it came directly from the fabric of the recliner. I froze. I stared at the chair, and then I saw it. Just for a fleeting second, the impression of someone sitting in it appeared on the cushion, like the fabric had been briefly compressed, and then it was gone. I'm officially beyond rational explanations. I think Grandpa's spirit, or at least some part of him, is still attached to that chair, and it doesn't seem happy. The sounds are getting more physical, more like someone is actually there, trapped or restless. Has anyone ever heard of a haunted object like this? A specific piece of furniture? What do we even do? Do we try to get rid of it? I feel weird just throwing away my grandpa's favorite chair, but honestly, it's starting to seriously creep us all out. Any advice or similar stories would be greatly appreciated. I'm losing sleep over this possessed lazy boy. TLDR, my deceased grandpa's recliner is making increasingly disturbing noises and even seems to briefly show the impression of someone sitting in it. Pretty sure it's haunted, and I'm officially freaked.
Story number 8, from user Basement Rust. Every neighborhood had that house. Ours had the one that screamed at night.
When I was a kid growing up in a quiet cul-de-sac in central Pennsylvania, there was a house at the end of the street everyone avoided. We called it Gray Lady's house. Not because anyone knew who the Gray Lady was, but because that's what kids do. Make up names for things they're too scared to understand. It was a sagging 2-story place, pale blue paint, stripped down to splinters, shutters barely hanging on, and this warped iron fence that looked like it had been melted and refrozen. The windows were always dark, no lights, no movement, and yet, somehow, it never felt empty. The weird part, no one ever officially lived there, no cars, no mail, no lawn care, but the grass never got overgrown. The sidewalk was always swept, like the house took care of itself. Then there were the screams, not every night, just sometimes, just enough. High-pitched, human and sharp, like someone had just woken up mid-autopsy. The police came a few times. My mom said they chalked it up to feral cats. Yeah, sure. Because feral cats definitely shout, "No, please, no," in a woman's voice at 3:14 a.m. We dared each other to get close, of course. I remember once, when I was 10, me and my friend Chris crept up to the porch. He knocked once. Light tap. Nothing. Knocked again. Louder. Still nothing. Then the door clicked. Not opened, just unlocked. We ran like hell. He peed himself a little. I never let him forget it. But here's the thing that really sticks with me. One Halloween, my brother dared me to ring the bell. Said I'd be a legend if I did. I was stupid, so I tried. I crept up the steps. Cold as hell, even though it was a mild October night. I reached for the bell, an old brass one shaped like a lion's head, and just before I touched it, the door swung open. There was no one there, just a hallway lit by a single bulb, flickering like it was gasping its last breath. The floor was covered in leaves, like hundreds of them, all dead and damp and inside. And deeper down the hall, there was a staircase, And on that staircase halfway up was a woman in a gray dress just standing. I didn't run. I couldn't. I blinked, and she was suddenly closer, still halfway up, but now only a few steps from the base. Her face was blurry, like it was smeared in smoke. Her head tilted, and I swear she was smiling. That broke me. I bolted, tripped on the steps, cracked my chin, needed 3 stitches, told my mom I fell off my bike, told my brother nothing, ever. No one ever bought that house. Not really. People moved in sometimes, lasted a few weeks, then left in the middle of the night. Once we saw a whole moving truck pull up, then leave an hour later, still full. Now the house is gone, bulldozed 5 years ago, the lot's empty. But every now and then, if you walk past around 3 a.m., you'll hear a door creak open, and sometimes it screams.
Story number 9 from user Moonlit Gravel Road. Some of our animals aren't alive, and I don't think they ever were.
About 6 months ago, my wife and I moved to a small farm in rural Ohio. It was a foreclosure, cheap, isolated, big red barn, white farmhouse, acres of pasture, total dream situation. The kind of place you move to when you want to start over and pretend you aren't still paying off a mountain of bad decisions. It came with a few animals, 3 goats, some chickens, and an old barn cat that we never actually saw, but definitely heard screaming at night like it had just seen God's darker half. Fine, whatever, country charm. Then the other animals started showing up. At first we just thought they were strays. A black dog appeared in the pasture one morning. Tall, lanky, matted fur, pale eyes. It didn't bark or growl, just paced along the fence line. I opened the gate to let it in, thinking it might be lost. It looked at me, and I swear to God, looked at me, like it was trying to figure out if I could see it. Then it walked into the woods and disappeared. Next morning, there it was again. Same pacing, same stare. This time, it was bleeding from its neck, but the blood never dripped. It just hung there, frozen, mid-spill, like a paused video. That's when I realized something was off. Then came the cows. We don't own cows, but 3 of them showed up in the lower field one morning, just standing there, motionless, not grazing, not blinking. One of them had a massive hole in its side, like something had carved out a rib section, but it still stood there like nothing was wrong. My wife called the sheriff, thinking someone was playing a sick joke. When the deputy arrived, there were no cows, just depressions in the grass where hooves had stood, and a smell, something sour and metallic, like old blood and rusted tools. We started taking photos, setting up trail cams. The photos showed empty fields, the videos static when they should have shown movement, and always at 4:44 a.m. without fail. There's the sound of hooves on gravel, but nothing there. The chickens won't go near the east side of the barn. One of the goats keeps butting at the same empty corner of the fence, like it's fighting something I can't see. And every once in a while, when the sun goes down, I swear I can hear a horse breathing behind me. Slow, deep, like it's right next to my ear. But here's what really freaked me out. Last week, I dug up an old box buried behind the barn. Inside were bones, dozens of them, small animals, dogs, cats, birds, all wrapped in burlap sacks. And taped to the lid of the box was a Polaroid. It was our barn, but the photo was old, sepia-toned, from maybe the 60s. And in front of the barn stood a man in overalls with a pig that had no eyes. In the bottom corner, Someone had written in pencil, "They always come back." I don't know what this place is. I don't know what these things want. But tomorrow, I'm locking the gates, boarding the barn doors, and calling a priest. Because tonight, the black dog is pacing again. But this time, it brought friends.
Story number 10 from user Backdoor Knocks. The glitch in our house. Turns out we've all seen it.
This is going to sound insane, but I need to know if anyone has experienced anything remotely similar. For years, my family and I have had these weird, fleeting glitches in our house. We'd mention them occasionally, laugh them off as tiredness or bad eyesight. But it turns out they might be something much, much stranger. I'll start with my own experiences. Ever since I was a kid, I'd sometimes catch a glimpse of someone standing at the end of the hallway. Tall, thin, almost translucent, and always just out of focus. By the time I blinked or looked properly, it was gone. I always assumed it was my eyes playing tricks on me, especially when I was half asleep. I'd occasionally mention it to my parents or siblings, who would just say I was imagining things. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, I was talking to my older sister Sarah about a weird feeling I sometimes get in the hallway at night. She got this really strange look on her face and said, "Wait, you see the tall, blurry figure too?" I was floored. She'd seen it too. For years. She said she'd catch it out of the corner of her eye, usually near the linen closet, and always thought it was just a shadow or her being tired. She never said anything because she thought she was the only one and didn't want us to think she was crazy. That conversation opened a can of worms. Later that week, I was talking to my dad about a weird cold spot I sometimes feel near the stairs. He stopped mid-sentence and said, "You feel that too?" I've felt it for years. Sometimes when I'm walking past, I get this distinct feeling like someone just brushed past me. But there's never anyone there. Then came the most unsettling revelation. I was chatting with my mom about how sometimes, late at night, I think I see a faint light flicker in the living room, even when all the lights are off. Her eyes went wide. She admitted that she's seen the same thing, a brief, almost ethereal shimmer of light near the window, usually late in the evening. She always dismissed it as a reflection from a passing car. It turns out, all four of us have been witnessing the same thing for years, in different parts of the house and at different times. We've all seen this tall, blurry figure, felt the cold spot, experienced the fleeting touch, or seen the strange light flicker. And none of us ever realized the others were seeing it too. We all thought we were alone in these weird little glitches. Now that we've talked about it, the pieces are starting to fit together. The reason none of us ever pressed the issue was because the experiences were always so brief and indistinct. We all just assumed it was our minds playing tricks. But the fact that we've all seen or felt the same unusual phenomena, independently, for so long, it's genuinely chilling. What is it? A ghost that's somehow fragmented or only partially visible? Why does it manifest in these fleeting glimpses? And the fact that we all experienced it in our own way, never realizing it was a shared experience, makes it even creepier. It feels like this presence has been subtly woven into the fabric of our lives in this house, unnoticed and unacknowledged for years. Has anyone else had a similar experience where a seemingly individual paranormal event turns out to be something everyone in the household has witnessed in their own way? We're all a little freaked out now that we know we're not alone in seeing the glitch. TLDR. My family and I have all been experiencing the same subtle paranormal phenomena. Blurry figure, cold spots, fleeting touches, light flickers, in our house for years. But we all thought we were the only ones until a recent conversation revealed the terrifying truth.
Story number 11 from user Ceiling Stain. The ghost on the school path only followed kids who walked alone. Guess who found that out the hard way?
I grew up in a small town where everything was just close enough to walk and just far enough to make you hate walking. My school was a 10-minute hike from my house, and there was only one real way to get there, unless you wanted to add another half-hour looping around, the shortcut through the woods. It was called Ash Path, not paved, just a dirt trail between the trees, barely wide enough for two kids side by side. Parents told us not to use it because it wasn't safe, which of course made it the only path we ever used. But we always walked it in groups. No one went through Ash Path alone, ever. Here's why. The older kids used to talk about her. They said a ghost haunted the path, a woman in a torn blue dress who would follow behind you, whispering things too quiet to hear until they were suddenly too loud. They said if you stopped walking, she'd stop too. If you ran, she'd laugh. But if you turned around, really turned around and looked at her, she'd show you her face. No one ever said what it looked like, just that no one who saw it ever slept through the night again. We used to think it was just campfire crap, until the day I walked alone. It was the first week of 6th grade. My friend Tyler ditched me to ride his bike, and I slept through my alarm, so I was late. Alone? My mom offered me a ride, but I said no, trying to prove I was grown or something. Dumb kid logic. So I took Ash Path, alone. First time, last time. The woods were too quiet. You never realize how much noise other kids make until they're not around. Every step I took sounded like it echoed, and maybe 15 feet in, I heard it. Leaves crunching behind me. I stopped. It stopped. I moved again. It moved again. Closer this time. Like whatever it was didn't care about being sneaky anymore. I thought maybe it was a deer, or a prank, or my own imagination. But I didn't dare look. I knew I wasn't alone. Then I heard the whisper, "You're late." It wasn't angry. It was worse. It was disappointed. I started walking faster. It matched me, still whispering. I couldn't make out the words anymore, just the rhythm, like a lullaby drowning in static. Halfway through the trail, I tripped, barely caught myself. The whispering stopped. Silence. Then I felt breath on the back of my neck, cold, damp, like it had just been pulled from the bottom of a well. Something brushed my shoulder, not hard, just enough to let me know it was real. That's when I ran. I burst out of the trees onto the sidewalk so fast I nearly got hit by a minivan, collapsed on the curb in full-blown panic. My teacher thought I was having an asthma attack. My mom made me promise to never take Ash Path again. But here's the thing. The next morning, Tyler waited for me at the end of the block, pale as a sheet. Said he biked past Ash Path that morning and saw a woman in a blue dress just standing there barefoot at the trailhead. She smiled at him, said nothing, then turned around and walked back into the woods, backwards. We never used the shortcut again. Neither did anyone else once the story got around. But sometimes, only when I walk alone, I still hear her voice. You never said thank you.
Story number 12, from user Antique Teeth. Something is wrong with the nursery monitor.
Hey everyone, longtime lurker here. Finally have something genuinely unsettling to share. My wife and I recently had our first child, a beautiful baby girl named Lily. Of course, we got a video baby monitor so we can keep an eye on her when she's sleeping. At first, it was a godsend, total peace of mind. But lately, things have been weird. It started subtly. Little visual glitches on the monitor, like a brief flicker or a distorted frame. I chalked it up to a cheap camera or Wi-Fi interference. My wife, Sarah, mentioned once that she thought she heard a faint staticky whisper through the audio, but we both dismissed it as just that, static. Then, about a week ago, I was watching Lily sleep on the monitor when I saw something that made my blood run cold. For a split second, there was a figure standing beside her crib, tall, gaunt, and completely still. It was almost translucent like heat haze, but undeniably there. By the time I blinked and refocused, it was gone. I shot out of bed and ran to her room, but everything was normal. Lily was sound asleep. I convinced myself it was just sleep deprivation playing tricks on my eyes. But it's happened again, and again. Each time, it's just a fleeting glimpse on the monitor. Sometimes it's near the crib, other times it's in the corner of the room, just standing there, unmoving. Sarah has started seeing it too. She's much more freaked out than I am. The audio has gotten worse as well. The staticky whispers are more frequent now, and sometimes they almost sound like words. We can never quite make them out, but they're definitely there. Last night, Sarah swore she heard a faint sigh. Tonight, though, was the worst. I was up late, checking the monitor as usual, when I saw the figure again. This time, it was closer to the crib, and it seemed to be looking down at Lily. And then, the audio crackled, and I heard it, clear as day, a single raspy whisper. Mine? I ripped the monitor out of the wall and ran into Lily's room. She was still sleeping peacefully, but the air in the room felt heavy, cold. There was a silence that was more unsettling than any noise. We haven't put the monitor back on. We're both terrified of what we might see or hear. We've been taking turns sleeping in her room, just to be safe. I don't know what to do. Is our house haunted? Is something trying to hurt our baby? The thought of it makes me sick. We've only lived here for a year, and there were no strange stories about the place before we moved in. Has anyone experienced anything like this with a baby monitor? Seeing things that aren't there, hearing whispers? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. We're first-time parents, already sleep-deprived and anxious. And this is pushing us to our limit. TLDR. We keep seeing a tall, gaunt figure on our baby monitor, and hearing creepy whispers, culminating in a clear whisper of, "Mine, last night." Terrified for our daughter.
Story number 13, from user Midnight Static. I think there's a ghost living in my guest room, and I don't think it likes being ignored.
I live alone. 3-bedroom house I inherited from my grandmother. Quiet neighborhood, decent yard, no immediate red flags. Unless you count the fact that every single neighbor gave me the same piece of advice when I moved in. Keep the door to the guest room closed at night. I thought it was some local superstition thing. Small towns are full of those, right? Salt at the windows, don't whistle at night, never name a stray cat. So I smiled, nodded, and left the door wide open like the stubborn idiot I am. That first night, I dreamed about someone standing in the hallway. Not walking, not talking, just standing outside the guest room door. I chalked it up to nerves, moving stress, grief, all the textbook excuses. But then little things started happening. The closet light in the guest room kept turning on, not flickering, not glitching, just on. Always around 3:30 a.m. I swapped the bulb, checked the wiring, even flipped the breaker, still turned on. Then the smell started, like damp soil and old perfume, sweet but spoiled. It would drift down the hall and stop right at my bedroom door. Never inside, just waiting. I still kept the guest room open, because I'm logical and logic says ghosts aren't real, right? Then came the night I woke up to the sound of someone crying. Not sobbing, not dramatic, just soft, sad, muffled crying coming from the guest room. I sat there, completely still, barely breathing. It went on for hours. I checked in the morning. Nothing there, just a cold patch on the bed and a perfect handprint on the inside of the window. I stopped sleeping well. I started locking the guest room. I even blessed the house myself after a 5-hour YouTube rabbit hole. The crying stopped. but the dreams came back. Last week, I dreamed the door to the guest room was open again. I walked down the hall, and there she was, a woman sitting on the bed, facing the wall, long hair, tattered dress, bare feet. She didn't move, didn't react, until I said, "What do you want?" And she turned around. Her face was completely blank. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin like melted wax. But I could hear her voice. "You never even asked who I was." I woke up screaming. That was 2 days ago. This morning, I found the guest room door open again. The lock was still engaged, but the door had somehow opened outward, like it wanted me to know it was never about permission. The bed's messed up now, pillows on the floor, sheets dragged halfway into the hall. I haven't touched them. I think she just wanted someone to notice her. But now I've noticed. And now, I think she wants more.
And that was 13 ghostly encounters. Maybe some of these are old pipes, tired brains, and your reflection freelancing in low light. But a few of them, the ones with the clear voices, the shared sightings, the details that land too precisely, don't sit comfortably in the nothing happened drawer. If ghosts aren't real, then something else is doing a great impression, and it's putting in overtime. Sleep tight, preferably somewhere the hallway can't practice your name. If you enjoyed tonight's story, subscribe for more, leave a like, and share it with someone who appreciates the darker things. New dark posts from Macabre Miscellanea arrive every week. Until next time, remember, if you hear breathing in an empty room, don't go looking. Whatever it is already knows you're awake.